All right. Hello and welcome everybody back to a podcast to answer your questions on addiction, recovery, and mental health. I am your host, co-host Dwight Hurst, and I am joined by our hosts, Clare Waismann and David Livingston. I think I just called you guys coasts. That was pretty slick of me there. You're actually hosts to my co-hosts. So we're off to a great start. We are also really grateful to have a wonderful guest here today. Adam Jablin is going to be joining us. So welcome, everybody. Let me go around and introduce the crew. I'm Dwight Hurst. I'm a clinical mental health counselor and always here to moderate and ask the questions for our program. And joined, of course, by Clare Waismann, who is the founder and creator of the Waismann Method opioid detoxification specialist and also the Domus Retreat. Hi, Clare.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing okay.
How's everybody?
And David Livingston, who's a licensed marriage and family therapist, is here as well, who's the director of clinical services for Domus Retreat, as well as for the Waismann Method. Hi, David.
Hi, good to be here. Good to have all of you.
And as I mentioned, we're really honored to have, I think, our first guest on the program. We do a lot of talking and answering of questions, and we're so glad to have another an expert join us in the field to talk about sobriety and mental health. This is Adam Jablin, who is an author, life coach, and recovery mentor. Has written the book Lotsaholic, From a Sick to Sober Superman. And Adam works regularly with people who are overcoming fears, denials, addictions. And Adam, one thing I wanted to mention that I thought was really cool on your website in your bio said, I want to be the Morpheus to your Neo, to be Phil Jackson to your Michael Jordan, to be Mickey to your Rocky Balboa, to be Jor-El to your Superman, and train you to be the one. Very, very cool. I like that intro very much. So welcome, Adam. Thanks for being here.
It's an honor. It's a privilege, guys.
Really, really cool that we were able to, and that we got to set that up to have everybody here. As everybody knows, if you're a regular to the program, and if you're a first timer, thanks so much for being here and for listening to us or watching if you're happening to see the video of this as well. We do everything in this show based off of question and answers about mental health and substance abuse recovery. And so we're going to start out today by asking some questions directly to you, Adam. We want to hear about your experiences. You talk about your own really personal transformations and things that you've gone through in your book. And I wanted to start out by just asking you to share with us a little bit about what that experience was that led you into this path of helping those with addiction.
Sure. I'll try to make my story or my path as brief as possible. I got clean and sober July 14th, 2006. Drinking and drugging, insecurities, fears, traumas, all things that I never dealt with. And I was a businessman and focused and driven but never did the inside work. Never did everything on the outside, nothing on the inside, which led to me being in a 28-day treatment facility. And within that 28 days, it was the most beautiful spiritual education and experience I ever had. Even to the smallest things, like make the appropriate face with the appropriate emotion. That's what a phony I was. I was so broken that I was always smiling, winking, giving you that. So you would think I'm okay, so I could do what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. But it was a profound experience. And maybe we'll get into some of the lessons and the teachings that anchored in me within that 28 days. But a part of me died, a big part of me died. And a part of me was reborn. And honestly, guys, I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't know if I had to wear robes and vow poverty. I didn't know if I had to wear a yarmulke or be baptized. I really didn't know, but I knew that guy was sober. And I jumped in with both feet. It made a decision I never looked back. And I attacked the program of sobriety. I attacked it like my life depended upon it, because it did. And 1 minute at a time, 1 day at a time, 1 month at a time, and eventually 1 year at a time, all these gifts and skills were coming out of me that I never really knew I acquired. I never really knew I had them within me. And my recovery and my sobriety became very attractive to other people, very contagious. And before you know it, I was helping people all around my town. And then I was helping A-list celebrities. And then I was helping professional athletes. This is all while running a family business. When we decided to sell the family business, I had about 14 years clean and sober. And I went to my mentor, a rock and roll Hall of Fame legend named Dion from the Bronx. And he's like my spiritual father. I just remember looking at him like, what am I going to do now? And he said, what are you talking about? He's like, you're going to finally be Adam Jablin. You know, you're going to influence thought to a higher reality. And he gave me the permission slip, if that's okay to say, to finally be myself. So I started the Hero Project, a coaching program in which I really ignite the hero within people, take them through their hero's journey, releasing them from alcoholism, addictions, unhealthy dependencies, fears, insecurities, and letting them live their best life. And that's how I'm here with you now.
You mentioned a lot about that internal process and how you kind of had a mask up, or you had some boundaries and barriers around, would you say, from those around you, but it sounds like maybe even internally in denial about yourself or not in touch with what you were experiencing?
Oh boy, I had such a disassociation. I'll give you an example. When I grew up, I'm a kid from the 80s, okay? Born in 76, kid. And when I was growing up, I was the fat kid. I was the chubby kid. My dad used to call me El Chubbo. There was a movie called The Goonies, and this kid would do the chunk shuffle, and my friends would ask me to chunk shuffle. It wasn't like I was picked on. You know, there was no bullying. You know, it was a little tougher of a generation. But I hated the way I looked and I hated the way I felt, which gave me like a very extroverted, class clown, like me personality, you know, make somebody laugh with me instead of laugh at me. When we moved to Boca Raton, Florida, when I was around 10 or 11 years old, I could have my shirt off every day. It was hot. You know, I used to go in the pool and still wear a shirt and it would still suck to my fat. And I just remember making a decision that was it. I'm not going to look like this anymore. I can't do it. And my mom started, you know, they bought me a weight set and Muscle and Fitness and Flex magazine. And I was watching Rocky Balboa and, you know, and I was just consuming this stuff. And in 4 short years, I went from being the fattest kid in the class to being the best built kid in the class. I went from kids being like, yo, how many Oreos did you eat last night? To, hey man, how much can you bench press? And the girls liked me. Everything changed on the outside, but me. I was still that insecure, class clown, fat kid, you know, please laugh with me, don't laugh at me. But with the muscles and with the charisma and with the skill set, I was able to hang out with the older kids. And I don't know about when you were growing up, but there was always something cooler about older kids. They had more freedom, they had more permissions, they were just doing fun stuff, and they were experimenting. There was no peer pressure, there was nothing like that. They passed it. I drank it, and it fixed something inside of me that I did not know was broken. It fixed it. And one of the things that really happened was I didn't become cocky. I didn't become arrogant. I didn't become like this. I became me. Like, I remember looking at my body being like, who is this? Like, there was such and leadership came out of me, and fun came out of me, and charisma came out of me, and confidence came out of me. What could be wrong with alcohol and substances? You know, I had a spiritual relationship with alcohol. It was and substance. It was spiritual. Make no mistake. This wasn't like I like chocolate or, you know what I mean, I enjoy a cigar. This was like, it was spiritual. And when I took that as far as I could take it, I finally had to do the work on the inside so my insides could match my outsides without that stuff.
Mm-hmm. I was curious about, Claire, when you were establishing with the Waismann Method approach, I know that that goes into it a lot, right? Is controlling and confronting underlying issues and not just the things on the exterior that we try to solve those internal problems through, right?
Yeah, it's incredibly important. As you know, again, as Adam described, you know, his experience and, you know, the spirituality that he thought came out of it, you know, with the substance. It's really important for us to hear everybody, because the paths are so different and the roots are so different, and the answer to, you know, to treatment is so different. So as he was extremely lucky to have a 28-day that did change his life, a lot of people on those 28 days lose hope and feel unheard. and they have deeper psychiatric issues that are not seen. So Adam's story gives a lot of hope, and there are answers. But just the answers are different for everybody because the root issue is different for everybody. So I think that's the part of what we do is first deal with the physical issue of substance, especially nowadays that the drugs are much stronger and the level of addiction is much higher. But we are living in a world right now where mental health issues are also extremely more amplified than what it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just jump in. So first of all, thank you, Adam. I love the imagery. I really love it because the idea of death and a rebirth is an image is fantastic. The hero's journey, what happens. So much of what happens during addiction is people lose a sense of an image of themselves or where they want to go. And I think that and it sounds like you kept reinventing and creating images. And if you want to know where someone's headed, just ask them what they want or listen to the images they have of themselves currently and where they see themselves headed. And so a lot of what happens when people get stuck in addiction is they lose an image of who they are, or they have a bad image of it, or they don't have a sense of where they want to go. So it seems like you kept that part of you really active forever, and that it's been an incredible part of what you bring to others now. And I think I can't even tell you how important I think that is. And I'm so happy you're sharing that because the greater we can help somebody in a treatment reorganize and create an image of themselves, it has to be authentic to them, right? They have to feel it. It has to be right for them. But when that starts to take place, you actually have a treatment that's beginning to take place. I think in the absence of that image, it's easy to wander around anywhere. And if your habit has been addiction, it's easy to fall prey to that. But so I just love the images you set forth.
Thank you, David. That means a lot.
You
And
mentioned,
I think an important thing that Adam had that is, absolutely wonderful is the support of his mom, the support, through his changes as well. And unfortunately, we see a lot of people that does not have that. But, it's a story of hope.
mm-hmm.
That to get off, to make a change in your life is, and this word is configured incorrectly from my perspective, or to some degree, but it's an aggressive act. It is a movement towards something different. And and when I listen to you and the passion and the enthusiasm, one of my favorite quotes was Bill Russell said, "Nothing great is accomplished without enthusiasm." And if you do not bring that to what you're doing, and I can just feel it in you when you talk, I can see your passion and so forth, and change happens. And so in any treatment, I think whoever you're working with, they have to have a genuine enthusiasm, and then there's something that can take place. So thank you again for sharing that.
Wow. I wanted to ask a little bit more about that role of relationships. You mentioned family, and Adam, you also mentioned having mentors and spiritual teachers and examples along the way. What could you say about the relationship between those types of having or developing or keeping those support systems and how that plays a role in recovery?
Me?
Yeah, sure.
Well, it's a wonderful asset if your family supports you. Having said that, I'm also somebody that went through a divorce about 14 years after I got clean and sober, because you have to grow together. You have to grow together. So one of the main people that helped save my life saw me as broken. And then she thought she fixed me. She didn't think it was rehab. She didn't think it was spirituality. She didn't think it was all the work I was doing. She thought she fixed me. And then I continued to grow. And in that relationship, you have to grow together. You have to recover together. You have to be a team. But, you know, God closes one door to open another. And also along the way, I had a mentor, or he's really a spiritual father to me. We actually have a book coming out this year. And it's kind of like a weekend at Morty's. It's Dion's life given to me and kind of the birth of the Hero Project. But I had an outside reference to my life, somebody that I can lean on, somebody that I could talk to, somebody that has been through the war, can see the trenches, knew where the landmines were, knew where the tripwire was, knew how to even speak this new language. And without that, I would never be the man I am today. Never, ever, ever.
You talk maybe share a little bit with people about the experience of how that some of the spiritual things that you mentioned. What are ways that you find people can get in touch with those things?
Well,
when you work with people as well.
Yeah, well, I'll do an exercise with them that a Catholic priest did with me. Okay, now I'm a Jew from Jersey. Okay, I'm sitting across from a Catholic priest. And he asks me point blank, do I believe in God? So, you know, I think anybody in my situation, if you're sitting across the table from a Catholic priest, the answer is always going to be, yes, of course, yeah, of course. Yeah. And I, you know, pull out the chair for my wife, and I open the door for old ladies, and I say, please and thank you, and law of attraction, and woo, you know what I mean? He's like, okay. And he goes, well, please do me a favor and stick out your arm. So I stick out my arm. And he went like this, and he touched me like that. He goes, do you see what I did there? So I looked at my arm, and I looked at the Father, and I looked at my arm. I'm like, I'm sorry, Father, I have no idea what you're talking about. He does it again. He goes, do you see what I did that time? And now I'm uncomfortable. Like, so as I told you guys, I use humor, you know what I mean? So I'm like, you know, Father, I'm Jewish. Maybe there's a disconnect here. I don't know. Maybe we're not speaking the same language. He does it again. He goes, you see what I did that time? Now I'm really uncomfortable. And I'm like, you know, Father, I heard about you guys with little boys. You know what I mean? And he starts laughing, and he turns the lights off. It goes black in his office. And he takes a UV light out, and there are all of his fingerprints, purple, glowing in the dark. And I'm staring at these fingerprints that he just touched me. And he goes, do you believe that there's been a power all around you that you can't see, taste, touch, none of the 5 basic senses that's been loving you, protecting you, and brought you here to me now? And I'm staring at these fingerprints. And I'm like, Father, I can believe. I can believe. He turned the lights back on. They went away. I'm like, oh, do it again. I thought it was like a magic trick. You know what I mean? But this Catholic priest took this Jew from Jersey and like downloaded him in the Matrix. You know, I got a real taste of what spirituality is. The unseen, the unknown. And I was explained, you know, that you can have healthy spirituality and unhealthy spirituality. That spirituality was like muscles, and that you can't get more spiritual, right? You can't get more muscles. I can't get another deltoid, another bicep, another tricep, another quadricep. You're given from birth all the muscles and spirituality you need. Now, what you can do is you can make it bigger, faster, stronger, healthier, more powerful, but you can't get more of it. And when it was explained to me it was like they spoke my language. They were making things very digestible, very easy to see, how you could see healthy spirituality. There's a shine in the eyes, a happiness, a glow, a feeling of warmth and celebration. These people tend to find their words very easy. You know, and then you can see unhealthy spirituality. They break eye contact. They're looking down. There's a strange vibration around them, almost like they're lying or they're worrying. They say, you know, they can't find themselves very fast. Well, at that time, I was unhealthy. And I want to get healthy muscles. I want to get healthy spirituality. And that's what I dedicated myself to.
It's interesting, as you said, when he's doing this little experiment or questioning, above all, even aside from just the spiritual aspect of that, it struck me that you were still at that point very much playing to the crowd, which we all do. But I think that goes towards what you had said, the pathological. I got to be what I got to, here's what I want. I think I'm supposed to say, here's what I think that I want to give this impression. And his questions were putting you in a place where you had to actually respond instead of saying like, I don't know what he wants me to say if he's touching my arm. That's something that stood out to me, is that stripped away that ability to hide behind anything, perhaps.
Yeah.
And that seems like that's important.
I think that's actually one of the biggest, I never worded it that way, but you said it so beautifully. I think that's maybe one of the biggest parts of recovery, is stripping away that mask and stripping away that false identity and stripping away the old ideas, the old belief systems, and allowing something else to come out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talk a lot on this show about the role of individualization in recovery and in treatment, and how to discover yourself and what works for you. And when it is a field that can be sometimes overly prescriptive of everybody has to do it this way, everybody has to do it that way. And I think it would be curious to know, Adam, how you approach that as someone who has a very personalized experience. You obviously bring a lot of your experience to helping people in recovery. How do you find that there is that balance or importance for people to individualize their own way of doing things, their own way of achieving health?
Well, I'll use things that were taught to me, and I'll use my own personality as well. Let's say with you guys, we just spoke about basketball, right? I'll use basketball and I'll say, look, there are certain things that you can't escape. There's dribbling the ball, there's the basics, there's the mid-range game, there's the layup, there's the three-point shot, you can't. Now, within those confines, within that, you could be Michael Jordan, you could be Larry Bird, you could be Kobe Bryant, you could be LeBron James. That's where it's individualized, right? That's why I would even call it a project. And certain things must be individualized, no doubt about it. But I do think some of the basics, no matter what you do in life, have to be addressed. Have to be addressed. It can't be so personalized that you lose sight of what the end goal is, which is recovery.
That's right. David, I wonder if you could say a few words about kind of the role that the psychotherapeutic approach plays in that, helping people to do that.
I would add to that. I'd say this, that the end goal isn't recovery, that the end goal is living your life as fully and authentically as you possibly can. And recovery is a necessary step, because without recovery, you cannot realize the fullness and the authenticity of who you are. And so they are hand in hand. But when I listen to you, I know we're talking about recovery, but what I hear is a man who feels alive, to speak his truths, who's able to be small and be big, that you have restored the full dynamic of what it means to be a human being. And I feel like in my process in working with people, that is my ultimate goal. And that is the hero's journey, is to be able to bring people back, and everybody's, like you said, we're not superstars in everything. We all have talents. We have things we're good at. We have things we're not good at all. We have things to overcome. But there's something about the fullness of that dynamic. It's the birth and the death that you talked about initially, where we can just, the ability to embrace and get comfortable with that. That is the hero's journey. No small thing for anybody. I think we all need mentors. I've had some incredible mentors, which have, shifted my life like you're talking about. I don't think any of us do it alone. They say that addiction is a disease of dependency. I'd put it a little differently. I would say that dependency is the thing that revitalizes us and moves us into life, right? So that when you find people who have done the work and who are enthusiastic and can begin to feel the fullness of themselves, we all learn from each other in that regard. I know I have. I'm learning. I learn from this podcast every time I hear something from Claire and Dwight, and that's a little different than what I have or what I can bring, and it's great. Just as I'm learning from you today, I think we set the bar too low. That's been my thing. But so when I hear you talk about the hero's journey, I don't think you're setting the bar low.
Thank you. Also, I'll double down on what David said. That I would say 100%. I'm with David on that. I mean, it is really for a person, a man or a woman or whatever you identify as, to be fully alive. But you also respect the house you're in, and I know what the name of this show is. So I wanted to say recovery.
Right.
But I agree with David. I double down on exactly what David said.
Right. And look, this is an ideal. And as Claire's saying, you start with where everyone's at. And sometimes people come in very, very vulnerable, very broken, struggling with just keeping things together. And you just try to, you meet people where they're at and wherever that is, but it's just to be able to be with someone where they're at, I think is a gift to both people, or I feel that. And
Yeah. And we are who we are during those times of addiction. One thing I'm curious about, Adam, as you mentioned earlier, I think that when you got into the addictive behaviors, as well as just those external working out and having that image in front of people, it seemed like you were trying to get in touch. The underlying goals that you had were not bad. I want to feel better about myself. I want to be, as you put it, if I drink, I can emerge socially, and there's this charisma and there's different things. So the goals that you were pursuing were healthy. It was just what was happening to try to meet them.
No, absolutely. I mean, healthy to an extent, healthy for where I was at the age that I was at and with the education that I had, but, let's say, believing it or not, religious or not, let's say God gave us these like 10 healthy commandments, right? That are pretty, no matter where you lay in religion, they're pretty great. They're just 10 commandments. If you follow these, they're a great guideline to live by. Honor thy mother and father, don't sleep with your neighbor's wife, thou shalt not kill, like very simple things. Well, at 10 years old or 11 years old, I made that first commandment. If I look like Sylvester Stallone, all my problems will go away. And that 10-year-old ran my life until I was 30. So it wasn't that it was unhealthy, but it wasn't on course.
And not evolving either. I mean, that to me, when you say appropriate for a 10-year-old, right, is sometimes then we can get stuck with expectations, some of which you mentioned are basically social expectations. But I think along with that mentality, I'm thinking of your commentary about finding the inner Superman versus kind of being obsessed with looking like Superman. Is that a good way to put it?
That's great. The ending of my book actually is my father and we had an interesting relationship, very loving relationship, but interesting to say the least, was me pushing my kids on a swing and him saying, Adam, you're finally like Superman. And I really didn't know what he was talking about. He said it so beautifully, but out of nowhere. And he's not a deep guy. He is a real rough and tough cowboy who rode the rodeo circuit. I was like, what do you mean? He said, well, you used to think Superman was about the powers and the muscles and the magnificent feats. He's like, but you know what Superman does? And I'm like, what? He goes, he saves lives. And it hit home. My rough and tough cowboy father, spoke language of the heart with me.
Is that where you pursued the inner Superman, the idea of the inner Superman?
Oh, that's a long story. I mean, the day I was born, literally May 19th, 1976, I had an S on my chest. I have no idea why this thing stuck. I'm looking forward to the day that I'm not on this earth and I can ask God, what was that about? What's with the fascination? What was the calling? What was it? It never left. It never left. I see a lot of kids and it's from Star Wars to this, to that. I mean? I think it's a natural, healthy evolution to change. But this fascination with this character never, ever left.
Interesting. how do you help people to interpret, define, and pursue that for themselves? Like, do I discover what my inner Superman is, or do I have to reinvent to get there? Is it some kind of combination of both?
It's definitely a combination. I love what Dave said first. You have to meet them where they're at. So I have to build a common language. So like when Bill said Bill Russell, I automatically said, well, let's use the parameters of basketball. So I meet my client where they're at. If they're really speaking these esoteric Eckhart Tolle, Abraham Hicks things, then I'm going to start using words like vibration. And I have to meet, if they're speaking sports analogies and they're talking about New England, I'm going to talk about the Patriots and the Celtics. I first, I create a common language so I can lower the fever, right? So I can actually address the problem. From that point, we'll usually go through finding out the causes and conditions of really why they're here with me. We'll destroy some denial, some things that they think happened or they believe happened, but may not have happened. And what would the opposite be? We will write a mission statement and a purpose of what it's going to be like going through this process. I'll find out what their energy is like, what their driving force is like. We go through everything, even to the point that at the last stage, when they're really about to, really return home in the hero's journey, we'll even go over love languages because I want the family to be together. My former wife, something that I wish I had known very early was like, her love language was acts of service. I'm not an acts of service guy. I never understood why she thought I was so sexy when I was gardening or taking out the garbage or putting in a light bulb. And those were not my favorite things to do. So I do think it's really important that when the person comes home, they're going to now be integrated in the family, and not just to make this family member understand what recovery is like, but you start building a language within the family because now you're in a role of leadership. Now now you are that hero within the family, and it would be really great to create harmony.
Mm-hmm. Oh. What kinds of things?
Can you tell me a little more, because I'm interested on the hero project. So what is the process? When somebody calls you and they are broken, they see no light.
Yeah.
They have destroyed quite a bit, from relationships to self-esteem to professional relationships. How does things work? What do you do? What is your first step?
It's going to sound really basic and practical. I mean, it's
Right.
Nothing too sexy, but it's really getting them to understand that I'm them 18 years down the road. It's making them feel completely safe, understanding that this is not something that just happened for me. This is something that can happen for anybody. Understanding their pain, understanding their feelings, understanding all of their doubts and fears in this journey. And I would never use the word sell, but building enough faith and belief that this can happen for them too. If they are truly committed. Right. If they're truly committed. And my job is to show them that their old way isn't working. And that this is a luxury. This is a luxury. This is not, nobody's mandating this. So this is something that really should come from within. You can take it as far as you want. You can learn these things in the prison system, from wherever you want to finally learn them, but you're going to learn them. You're going to learn them. Do you want to take this time, this money, this opportunity, these finances and put it within yourself, or maybe to a lawyer with a DUI? It's completely up to you. But I say we stop the fever now. Let's lower the fever, and that way we could start slowly getting into what's actually causing the fever.
Mm-hmm.
I think, David, too, I'm not 100%, what Adam sees. Sometimes, Adam, we see patients that are so broken, they can't see it. They can't see a day ahead. Their hopes have been so shattered that even to commit to anything long term becomes, a fountain of anxiety and doubts, and that just snowballs on them.
Yeah, but
So,
Claire, you and David do amazing work, and I think if they're there or if they're in front of you, there's something.
there's something.
Whatever we want
Correct.
to call it, whatever we want to call it, there's a sliver of hope, and we all in our own ways have a job to open that window as wide enough as we can so they can jump through. But if they're talking to you, there's something. There's something.
And we often say, me and David, that even the ones that didn't make it, the week they were there, they felt hurt. They felt cared. They knew, there is some light out there, even if they did. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and kind of speaking to what you're talking about, Adam, like cures like, and so you have to meet someone where they're at, find a common language, because you're trying to eventually create a new image for them. And if you what was it, Einstein said, imagination is more important than intellect. What you imagine is where you're headed. But in order to do that, you have to, some images, you have to be like a step ahead of the person. If you're too far ahead of them, or you're, or you have nothing to offer them, it doesn't move things. So the idea of being just one step ahead of them and really kind of with them and creating a language, then you begin to have this feeling that like cures like. Now, sometimes it is really, you use the word broken when you were describing yourself. And I don't know you well enough, and I'm not saying whatever, but when I speak to you, you do not sound broken. And you could say, I don't know the journey you've been on. I don't know everything you've been through. All of that's true. But there's something buoyant in you. And I think the minute something is buoyant, the minute someone is sitting in front of you and they're asking for help, if they're sitting there, if they even just made it into the office, they're asking for help. And there's already some buoyancy that is happening. And so it's really, and for me, and I really mean this, it's really a privilege to be able to have someone sit down and want to get help. And so I think if you can begin to feel that, there begins to be some sort of process that can move things in some way forward. I never know exactly what it's going to look like. I never know exactly what I'm saying or doing is helpful or unhelpful. I am learning throughout the whole thing. But there is something, incredible about just stepping in and asking for help and getting it, and then finding the person who's right for you in the situation that's right for you. I think, like you're saying, Adam, that it's changed your life. I've had similar experiences, many of them in different ways. I'm always looking for those mirrors. And so I encourage, we should all be doing that throughout our lives forever.
No doubts.
Oh. Well, it's been such a privilege to be able to be together and talk about this. As we're getting close to our time today, Adam, could you share some resources for people who might be struggling with addiction themselves or trying to help loved ones who are starting out on this path? What would you give them?
Absolutely. Well, if anyone ever wants to find me or look me up, it's really easy. It's just Adam Jablin everywhere. So it's adamjablin.com, and it's Adam Jablin on Instagram and all of the social media stuff. And on there, I do have a free 7-day series, very, very simple, called the Hero 7, which, is basically a 7-step series of spiritual in nature, of just how to start growing little things that they even gave me at treatment, that's free for anybody to look up and use at any time.
Right. Well, wonderful. And thank you once again for taking your time to be here and for sharing that with us. Once again, your book said is Lotsaholic, From a Sick to Sober Superman. Did I get that right?
Yes, sir.
And for those watching, as we've touched on Superman so many times, those of you who are seeing the video here on the site or on our social media can see the big Superman right behind Adam as well. So that's been in the room with us the whole time, as well as the real inner Superman, and helping us all to find that. So really grateful to have you. We are, as always, very, very grateful to listeners, viewers, and those who are out there who are watching, and especially those who are sharing the information that we have here. Please share that wide and far and let people know. We want to hear from you as well, so that we know what you want us to talk about and what questions you'd like us to be answering. You can always email us, info@opiates.com. Visit the Waismann Method website at opiates.com, or reach out to any socials. We are at Opiates on all of them, I believe. Marina is really good about following up on that, and we'll always get you responses as well. So for everybody here, for Claire and David and Adam, thank you so much again, everybody. And I'm Dwight to bid you all a farewell today, and remind you to keep asking questions, because if you ask questions, then you'll find answers. And when you find answers, you can find hope. And we'll be with you again soon.